I used to brag about having a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Mm.
And people used to say all the time, like, how do you always like just walk away from a job, or how do you what? Because I always had a plan B. I always had a plan C. I always had plan D. Because if those didn't work, then I would go to E and F.
Yeah.
That is actually giving yourself permission to fail.
Today's guest is a coach, consultant, podcast host, and psychologist. Our vision is to educate, empower, and equip women to lead their lives with courage, confidence, and conviction as authorities they are created to be. Welcome to the show, Anika. How are you doing?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm doing so wonderfully well. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Mirror Talk. I'm really grateful that, even before I pressed on recording here, we were able to connect, talk about, where we are living and how everything is like. I'm really glad. Like, I'm so excited to be speaking with you. Like, you've just made my whole day already. Thank you so much for that.
I'm excited to be here. I love that we get to do that. We're on opposite sides of the world and we get to connect. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. And I would love, to start with knowing about you. Like, can you share your life journey with me? What motivated you to want to assist women with, personal, professional, and business development, even starting with your passion for advocacy at the age of 14? Like, what started all of this?
So I always go back to 14 because for me, that's when the Band-Aid of life was ripped off. I was assaulted. I was sexually assaulted at 14. And I had to make a decision as to what my life was going to mean, because I'm the type of person that believes that everything happens for a reason. And I feel like, God gives us challenges as preparation for what he needs us to know and what he needs us to do. And so at 14, I was assaulted, I was impregnated, and I was hospitalized. And it was really hard. Over the 2 years between 14 and 16, I went through, all of the social, system of having to go to court and medical and mental health and all of these things. The healing process started.
Yeah.
Of course, prior to that, I had a lot of childhood trauma, between my parents getting divorced and all kinds of things that were happening in my life. But at 14, it was like, okay, so this is the point where, you're starting to mature, you're starting to make sense of things, your personality is really developing. I was in the band, I was an IB student, I was very smart. There were expectations on me. My mom's an educator. So there were expectations of me, of my performance and all, but I was modeling and I was considered a full figure model before that was cool, and so it messed with my self-perception. But I immediately jumped out there and started mentoring others. I started being a date rape advocate. And when I went to college, I became a correction officer because I got a degree in criminal justice because I immediately started weightlifting and training. I wanted to make sure that I could defend myself, that I never wanted to be a victim again. And then I was victimized again in college. And, trauma just kept happening. And so then I was like, okay, so if it keeps happening to me, people always said, God won't give you any more than you can handle. And I used to get angry at God because I'm like, listen, we got two different versions of strong. I was like, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I kept fighting back. And I didn't know I was fighting back. It was just who I was. As I got older, I learned that was resilience. As I got older, I learned that everybody else wasn't going through what I was going through. For me, I never had the time to think about that or compare myself to anybody else. I was surviving. I think it was instilled in me, as long as I can remember, to educate, educate. My mother always taught me that when I didn't understand something, learn about it, research it. And so now I'm a lifelong learner. From 14 to 20, I did college. I graduated with a degree in criminal justice. My first job was a correction officer. I became a mom at 24 in a very abusive relationship. And it's funny because abuse has so many different perceptions. People think abuse is just physical. It is not. I mean, you've got financial abuse, emotional abuse, you've got abuse that's not just intimate partner abuse. There's abuse in the workplace, there's abuse within families.
Yeah.
There's so many different forms. And when you're so vulnerable, when you've been traumatized, no matter what age, you are then, sensitive to attacks, from external forces impacting your mind, your body, your soul. And so early on, I was taught meditation, I was taught yoga, I was taught different forms of healing. I was in therapy for as long as I can remember, but I just kept working in capacities where I was working with vulnerable populations because that was my heart. These people were like me. These were people that were asking for help, saying that something's not right, understanding and acknowledging that there has to be another or better way to live. And so I committed 20 years in social services between the prison, mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence. I continued to get certifications. I continued to educate myself. I continued to position myself in places where I could heal, deal, and grow. And so at one point, I finally decided, okay, now I have enough that I can teach others how to heal, deal, and grow. Because for many years, I felt like the only way to do that was to become a therapist, but I didn't want to be a therapist. I enrolled in a master's program in 2009 to get my master's in psychology. And from the minute I did that, life just happened. I mean, I was ill. I was ill for 10 years, diagnosed with fibromyalgia, blood clots. They were looking for lupus. They were looking for myasthenia gravis. They were looking for MS. I was in and out of the hospital. I was paralyzed, had to learn to walk again, raising 3 kids now at this point, going through a divorce. I mean, it was just happening. 10 years it took me to get my master's degree. And I wanted to give up so many times. When it didn't happen for me, in 2018, I started my coaching practice because I said, okay, there's got to be a way for me to do this without being a therapist. So I started coaching. And when I started coaching, I was really looking for the wrong audience. And it took a lot for me. I started building websites. I started my podcast, I started meeting people. I started started my conference series. Like, I just kept building platforms because I said, okay, there's so many different ways to do this instead of just being a therapist. Like, I realized and I learned, that there's blogging, that there's telling your story, that there's so many different avenues and ways to do things. Not to mention, people learn in different ways. Society teaches us that there's only one way to learn. No, people learn through talking, through, groups, supports, mentorship, membership. There's so many different things that are more effective than just therapy. And so I kind of immersed myself in a lifestyle of being that person for people, offering education, offering support, offering mentorship and membership, and just utilizing different modalities to really change the perspective of mental health, of mental illness, of trauma, of victims, of pain. Just raising awareness as to the impact that pain can have on one life and the lives that are therefore impacted by that life itself.
Yes. Wow. I really admire your, survival spirit, your strength, pulling through the, sexual assault at the age of 14, several, violence and, broken home, divorce, and everything that you went through. I really admire your strength. And it's not everyone has the power to pull through and come out to even motivate other people, or to, help other people with their mental health, or to create platforms where other people could, become better people also. So I really respect that. Well done. And thank you so much for using your life journey, for using your story, for using everything that you've experienced to help other people. That's really great and awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you could share a little bit with me, like, how are you able to survive all of that? I'm so interested to know how at the age of 14 you were able to survive the sexual assault and follow other assault that also followed up afterwards, divorce at the age of 24. how are you able to survive all of that and come out at the other end, as a strong woman that you are today?
For me, I've always, the minute I became a mom, failure was not an option.
Mm,
Quitting has never been an option. You can't fail as long as you're trying, and that's something that people they associate success with money. And for me, it's never been about monetary gain. It's about maintaining my sanity.
mm,
That's my sanity is not for sale. And for me, that's always been my core. Like, I can experience a lot of things, but as long as I never let it completely break me, that's kind of been my motivational force, because I know that there's no one else. I am what my children have, between their dad walked away, so they can walk away, and that's it. For me, it's never been a option that I have to find a way. I mean, at one point we've been homeless 3 times. And I always either had a home or a car. Sometimes I never had both, but I mean, I've tried to teach my children that no matter what happens to you externally, as long as you have your faith and you have your mind,
mm,
that no one can take those two things away from you. They can steal your house, they can steal your car, they can repossess your car. I mean, people can break in your house. I mean, when I was a kid, my house burned down. I
mm,
mean, I've literally lost things that people never lose. I've been in car accidents. I now have bulging discs in my back, which I didn't know that's why I was paralyzed, but my insurance company wouldn't give me an MRI. I just knew I couldn't walk and had to learn to walk again. Come to find out 10 years later, there was a reason.
mm,
Um, I've always been perceived as a problem in my workplace,
mm.
which has then resulted. Now I'm getting my PhD in industrial organizational psychology.
Wow.
Um, I've been, there's been barriers put up everywhere I try to raise awareness or shout out loud or, speak the truth. It's always been silence, hush, don't talk about that. Just stay in your lane, just do your job.
Mm,
Anytime I tried to climb the ladder at work, I was given 10 positions with one paycheck that was, the bottom of the barrel.
mm,
And I've always just been extremely observant. I've always just been aware, like self-aware, aware of my surroundings, aware of power, like what power people have. And ultimately, if you don't give people the power to determine your destiny,
yeah.
you're always in control of it. And
Mm,
so I guess that's kind of been, people have always looked at me funny because I won't stay at a job for very long. If it's a toxic environment, I'm not going to be there. I don't care if it's a relationship.
mm,
It could be cousin, auntie, mom, father, sister, brother. Those roles do not dictate your, you know, they don't determine that you have to stay and tolerate that. You don't. You have the right to say this is not for me.
yeah.
And so I've been the disruptor, I
Mm,
guess, everywhere that I go.
mm,
And until 2018, when I started my business, my husband, my now husband, came back in my life. I had met him 20 years ago, and he asked me to marry him. And marrying him meant leaving where I was,
mm,
leaving my comfort zone. I had been wanting to leave my comfort zone for a very long time, but as a single mom, I didn't have the courage. I
mm,
had courage in a lot of ways, but I did not have the courage to leave the place where I knew the resources, where I knew, my surroundings. I knew I had friends, I had family. I knew that they weren't capable of accelerating me to where I needed to be. And
yeah.
I wasn't able to do it where I was. I knew that I had to make the change,
Mm,
but I needed the fire. I needed the motivation. I needed support in order to do that.
yes.
And so when my husband said, marry me and move wherever the military tells us to go, God told me do something I'd never do. He said,
Was
do
it?
something different. Don't
Mm,
think like you normally think. Don't act like you normally act. Do something just irrational. And so I said yes. And I had thought that I had grown prior to that point.
mm,
But in the last 3 years, I have grown so much, and I have met Anika.
mm,
I didn't know me. I didn't know my strength. I didn't know my power.
mm,
And now being isolated on an island away from everything that I know, I've had to really tap into who I am, what my mission is, and what God put me on this earth to do.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, I have no idea what one motivational factor it was other than my children,
Mm.
because I mean, for 10 years, I was angry at God. I had faith, but not necessarily in Him.
Mm.
My faith was previously in people.
Oh, yeah.
And along the journey, it has shifted from people to Him,
Mm.
and to knowing that there's something bigger than me and bigger than anybody in my life,
Yes.
that my purpose is, it cannot be controlled or dictated by any one being,
Mm.
not even myself, because I can't control what happens to me.
Mm.
I can only control my reaction to it.
That's true. That's
And
very
so
true.
I'm there now where I understand that, and I no longer question the why me. I kind of feel privileged
Mm.
that it is me.
Yes.
And I'm also grateful to have, a creative mind.
Mm.
God gave me this mind.
Mm.
And through all my trauma, therapists and psychiatrists have always tried to, minimize that, because people who are really creative and out of the box are always, oh, you're bipolar, you're this, you're that,
Mm.
and
Mm.
and parents and everybody's always trying to put a lid on it. It's like, okay, I just want my kid to be normal and just stop thinking, just conform.
Yes.
That's never been a word in my diction. It's not welcome in my
Mm.
life.
Mm.
So I've never been that person, and now I endorse that.
Mm.
I give myself permission to just be who God created me to be, and to just wake up every day and wait and see what happens.
Yes. That's the best thing to do. That's it. Awesome and best thing to do. Yes. So from your story and from the lessons that you've learned from life experience, like how can you advise other people out there to become who God wants them to be, and to find their true purpose? Like you said, you discovered who Anika really is. Like how can other people out there, and you also discover who they truly are, who they are, what they are, and what their purpose on earth is?
The one word I tell everybody is intuition.
Mm.
I literally heard on the radio this morning that the radio host was saying how intuition is a lie. No, it's not. We all have those voices and thoughts in our head. We have things telling us, like you said that you had the vision for your podcast 2 years before you took action.
Yes.
Well, I call myself an activation ambassador because I give people permission to listen to themselves.
Mm.
Those seeds are planted in your mind for a reason,
Yeah.
and we ignore it. Everything that I'm doing now, I knew that I wanted to do from the time I was 4 years old. My mom jokes all the time. She's like, we used to ask you what you wanted to be, and you said the boss. And, she always saw that negatively, as if I can't follow instructions or I can't listen. But it wasn't that. It was, I wanted creative freedom. I wanted to be able to move things forward without people always saying why it won't work versus exploring how it can. And as an entrepreneur, I'm able to do that. And so, to your point, intuition is something that we all have. Yes, we always joke that women have it more. I don't think it's that. I think women are more apt to listen to it. We kind of have a lot more roles and responsibilities to where we can actually implement some of the ideas that we have. We kind of take the time to really play with things a little bit more. Guys are a little more structured. They need a little bit more black and white in their life. Women are always looking for gray.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so if you just tap into those things and you put fear aside
Mm.
and you allow yourself to explore your own intuition,
Mm.
then the possibilities are endless.
Mm. Yeah. So now I'm listening to myself. Like I have that intuition, and I'm trying to, understand what, it's telling me to do and what I'm supposed to do. So how can I activate like my ambition? Like how can we activate our ambition to become that authority in our lives and business or any area of our life simultaneously?
Well, so you take your intuition and then you set a goal.
Mm.
And see, I used to be that one throwing spaghetti noodles to the wall. I mean, I would have an idea. It didn't go with anything. I mean, it did, but it didn't. Um, you have to set a goal, and then you reverse engineer it. So let's just say that, you want your podcast to have 100,000 downloads by, let's say, January.
Yeah.
Okay. Put it in cement.
Mm.
Forget a Sharpie. Like, cement it somewhere and reverse engineer it. You go to it and you take a step back and you walk backwards. Okay, how can I make that happen? And if you don't allow yourself, I used to have I used to brag about having a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. And people used to say all the time, like, how do you always like just walk away from a job, or how do you what? Because I always had a plan B. I always had a plan C. I always had plan D. Because if those didn't work, then I would go to E and F.
Yeah.
That is actually giving yourself permission to fail. And I realized that within the last 2 months, like, okay, this is how I was sabotaging myself. Because the ideas that I have, the podcast, everything, I'm not putting 100% into any of it. I'm doing 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Well, then you're not going to get where you're trying to go. You just got stuff planted, but you're not watering it. You're not making sure the sunlight is hitting it. You just got it down in the dirt. So you set a goal and you set a timeline. And a lot of people think, well, I can't do that and I can't do that. Yes, you can. You set a goal, you set a timeline. And then you determine who can help me. What do I have that I need? What don't I have that I need? And how can I get it? And you put all those pieces together and you put 100% in it. And you don't give yourself like forever. You literally give yourself a deadline and you put 100% in it. And then you have a sense of accomplishment. Because one of the things, people can have courage, but they may not have confidence. Confidence comes with achievement. So if you're not taking notice and keeping a record of your achievements, then you constantly feel inadequate, like you're not doing enough. And so you have to start putting things down somewhere. I don't care, digitally, on paper, and make it visible to where you can look at it every day. Okay, this was my goal. I'm at 10,000. I'm at 20,000. I'm at 30,000. And as you see that climb, you start to feel invincible. It's like, I didn't think I could do it, but I'm doing it. And then it's like robotic. It's like, oh snap, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm almost there. And then you can celebrate, because a lot of people don't celebrate their wins. I'm huge on celebrating. My husband, when he married me, he's like, oh my gosh, you celebrate everything. Because when you live a life of chaos and trauma and just crap, you celebrate the smallest things, because I want my kids to know that it's okay to be happy. It's okay to make a big deal out of anything, because you're teaching yourself that you can do it. And once you know that you can do something, then you realize I could do something bigger. And then you realize that it's okay to ask for help. And then you realize that it's okay to dream big, but it doesn't just have to be a dream. It's attainable. And so you just keep doing that, and you repeat and you repeat, and you give yourself permission to like achieve your goals, because most of us set out to do something, but we don't take action.
But how do we set realistic goals for ourselves? Like, now we have these big dreams, we have, visions. How can we set, realistic goals and, actually achieve them? Like you said, write them down, set timelines, cement it somewhere so that you can always see, the milestones you want to achieve in life. But sometimes we think about it and say, okay, well, this goal seems too big or too, out of the moon or something like that. So how can we really, set goals that are achievable?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, there's no goal or dream that is too big. The only difference between the size of a dream is the amount of time you give yourself to achieve it. So let's just say that, you see all these people talking about being a 6-figure coach. It's never been a dream of mine. And I actually don't even like being around that concept because you're putting monetary gain on somebody's need.
Mm.
If you want to be sustainable, if you want to build a legacy and be able to give back to your family, if you want to be a philanthropist, I mean, you think about what you want to do. You got to make sure that you put out, you need your description. So, I mean, 6-figure coach. Okay, no. I want to make $100,000. You need a number. Then you can say, okay, well, what is the easiest way for me to get there? Okay, you've identified it, but maybe that's not what you want to do. For me, I went back to get my PhD. I had a million people tell me I didn't need it. They're like, Anika, you have your master's, you've been working in the field, you're so creative, you have these businesses. And for me, I'm a lifelong learner. And I need that structure. I need that sense of belonging. But also my PhD gives me access to others who think like me. Because even though I'm interviewing people, they're not scholars. They're not academics. They're not researchers. But when I'm writing in my journals or I'm researching and I'm doing these things, I feel a sense of community and I feel like it's me. I belong. And as an entrepreneur, it's extremely lonely. So I say that to say, okay, identify the easiest road. Okay, I could do this. Identify your transferable skills. What do you already have that can get you where you're trying to go? Is it enough? If it's not, do I need a coaching certification? Do I need this? Do I need a peace board? Do I need a real estate license? I'm also a real estate investor. That's one of my businesses. What do I need? And I tell my clients all the time, like, you don't have to go get the certification. You can literally partner with somebody that already has it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're always feeling like we have to be the end all be all. No, you sit down and you map out a plan, a strategic plan. Okay, I could do this, I could do that, or I could do this. Okay, which one is most feasible? Which one requires, what are your parameters? I want to only work 3 days a week. Okay, well, then this plan will work for that. Or I want to go back to school. Okay, this plan will work for that. You sit down, you do your research, and then you determine, okay, which one works for you? What do you need to do it? And who do you need to help you? And I always tell my clients, get an index card. On one side of it, write the 10 people who have hindered your mental health, your confidence, who have been negative Nancy's, who have always told you that you're thinking wrong, you're crazy, don't do this, do that. Put those 10 people on one side of an index card. Then turn it over, and you're going to put the 10 people who have always been your biggest cheerleaders, even that you just ignored. Like those people that were weird to you, that were nice to you for no reason, that you never did anything for them, they just always have loved you.
Yes.
Those are the 10 people you put on the other side of the card. You dump the 10 negative Nancy's, and the ones on the card, those are the ones you put in your Rolodex, and you start building those relationships, and you get them to support you along your journey. Because one thing that we don't realize is that we take things for granted. There are these people that we hold on to for some reason that we feel like we want to prove them wrong, or that we owe them something because they may have done something once, but they've done a million things negatively to hinder us 100 times.
Yeah.
You got to start dumping. That's the first thing. In order to dominate, you got to dump. And so you got to dump the baggage. You got to take the anchor off your ankle, because you can't move forward and you can't excel with an anchor.
True.
And that can be people, places, things, jobs, things in your house, like just crap, whatever it is, make room. Make room for abundance.
Yes.
Because abundance is not going to come if you've got if you're hoarding. You got to make room for it. You got to make room in your life, in your mind, in your soul, in your house, in your car. You have to make room. And once you make room, then you'll flourish. And so you just got to start there and start building your strategic plan, and you do it daily. Just every day you do a little bit towards it. You don't expect to have the whole vision mapped out in one day, because a lot of us do. I have it mapped out in a million different notebooks behind here, but don't do that. Give yourself Give yourself time to figure it out and brain map. Dump it all on a piece of paper and then organize your thoughts
Yeah.
and create a plan and
Yes.
execute.
We should organize our thoughts towards abundance. Yeah. And
Mhm.
you said abundance could mean a lot of things. Like, what's your definition for abundance and success? Like, that's one thing we all want to achieve. Like, we want to be successful and want to have abundance. What's your definition for this? And how can we, achieve success or abundance?
Abundance is simply fulfillment.
Mm.
That's all it is. You
Yeah.
know, abundance can be spiritual, it can be mental, it can be a whole lot of things, but I mean, you can have all the money in the world and be the most miserable person in the world. And we see it all the time. We see these celebrities who commit suicide.
Yeah.
It's because, yeah, people think that they're successful because people associate success with money, but that is not what success is.
Mm.
Success is in the mind. And so if your mindset is on lack, you'll never be successful. If your mindset is on negativity, you'll never be successful. If your mindset is stuck on the past, you're never going to be successful. And for me, abundance is the ability to just abundance is striving for excellence.
Mm.
And so that can mean if you're a servant leader, that means, giving. And we all think that we have to have money to be a philanthropist. No, time, energy, intent. It's about intention.
Mm.
And that's where people get lost. People think, well, I didn't do enough.
Yes.
No, it's all about intent.
Mm.
So if you intend to change a life, you can literally just do one kind thing for somebody. And I guarantee you it'll change their life. It doesn't have to be this monstrous act. It can be something very simple.
Yeah.
And so abundance is just fulfillment.
Mm. Wow, that's so good. Thank you so much. So now we have our goals set. We have our clear vision. Like, we know what fulfillment we want to achieve, maybe in our finance, in our career. But now, the journey towards fulfillment has to do with, our performance. We have to, really do the work to achieve that fulfillment that we want in life. So how can we maximize, our performance? How can we maximize our ability to live the life that we desire and to achieve that goal that we want for our lives?
You can maximize your performance by putting yourself first.
Hmm.
I struggled with that for a very, very long time because I was raised by a single mom who never put herself first. And so I started my life doing the same thing. I put my children first.
Yeah.
If when I walked in a room, people would say, "Oh, this is Anika," and they'd say, "Who are you?" I would say a single mom. I would never say a therapist or a case manager or a project manager and even in my business, I find my language to minimize my impact always. Like I struggle. I've spent 3 years trying to come up with a title. And I change it every day because I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's what I do. I've been a success strategist, an activation ambassador, a coach, a consultant, and I'm to the point now where I don't even know what I am. And I don't worry about it anymore. I I just strive to be the best me because when you're the best you, anything that you touch will be gold. But if you're a hot mess and you keep implanting yourself into everything, everything you touch is going to be a mess because it manifests. You're manifesting what you're putting out. And so when you put yourself first, you have a sound mind and body. You have to have that so that you can perform better. And you have to do the work daily. I mean, on a daily basis, I listen to anywhere between 1 and 3 sermons. Michael Todd and Steve Furtick are my absolute favorite.
I love them too. I love Michael Todd.
And lately they've been yelling at me and I don't appreciate it. I turn it on and they're speaking directly to me. And I'm like, this is rude and disrespectful. Like, I don't appreciate this. And so, and so I've been doing that a lot. And I go to the beach, I drive out to the beach and I sit and listen to it. And I put it in my headphones so that it doesn't ring. It's in my head. But I find that between that and then I listen to music when I'm creating graphics or a website or even content, I'm either listening to jazz, classical, or 90s R&B. But music, I was a musician for 20 something years, and I got a music scholarship to college, and I changed my major my last year, but music is my core. And I'm getting back to that because it allows you to just be centered.
Yeah.
And my dissertation is on leadership. And it's funny because our assignment this week is to watch a TEDx talk on a guy that talks about a composer and how, not a composer, but a conductor, and how he's one person standing in the front of an orchestra. But the orchestra is made of different musicians who are playing different instruments that contribute, that harmonize. But each instrument has its own story. But that conductor is the one that brings it all together. And they're not controlling the situation. They're literally helping everyone bring it together so that it's harmonic and so that it's pleasurable to everybody else. But if you take each individual piece, it's just like it's missing something.
Yes, that's true.
You know?
Yes.
And that's what it is about being a leader. That's what it is about being self-oriented, self-aware. Emotional intelligence is one of my jams. And to your point, like, how do you perform better?
Yes.
You have to be emotionally and culturally intelligent.
How do you do that? How can we be emotionally intelligent?
Emotional intelligence, for me, the core of it is self-awareness. So when you're self-aware, you know what you have to offer, you know what your needs are, you know what your strengths are, but you also know what can make you better. And you're willing to do that. You know the impact that you have on the people around you. You know what your expertise are. And this is where most people struggle. You ask somebody, what is their subject? You know, what's their subject matter? What's their gift? Name one thing you're good at. Most people can't answer that. And I've struggled, but I've now figured it out. It's like, you do have to narrow down in order to be able to perform better. And people are afraid of that because in some way they feel like they're minimizing. But most successful people are able to identify one thing and they surround themselves by just perfecting that one thing. And so when you're able to really hone in to who you are, to what you have to give, and to what that looks like, you're able to be a better person, a better parent, a better entrepreneur, a better employee, a better leader, a better whatever you are. And so it starts with self.
But sometimes when you say, I'm going to put myself first in every situation, like in my relationship or any area of life, some people tag it as being selfish. Like, how do you deal with that? Like when you are being tagged as being selfish?
Well, I'm going to tell you what, I used to think it was selfish, but now I realize that, before I was married and I was a single mom, I was angry. I mean, the way I talked to my kids, and everybody thought I was a good mom, but I was angry. Like my heart hurt. I was exhausted. Like I just felt like I was just always resentful, because why is everything so hard? Now I wake up and I put myself first. I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I check my emails. I watch the news. I listen to sermons. I prepare my mind for the day. I put myself, I center myself because I am the core of this family. My husband has his role, but my kids look to me. So my clients look to me. The teachers look to me. The doctors look to me. I have 3 special needs children. So on a daily basis, I'm managing occupational therapy, physical therapy, mental therapy for each one of my children, psychiatrists, and then for myself, because I have chronic illness. And I'm the center. I'm the command center of my life. If I'm not okay, the command center is down.
That's true.
Because that command center is internal. It's me. It's not my computer. It's not my calendar. It's not my phone. It's me. And so I have realized that when I'm unhappy, which I am, I'm extremely unhappy with my location, my geographical location. I have to do hours of work a day to make it okay to just continue to be me despite that unhappiness, because it's the one thing I can't control. So then I have to focus on what I can control.
Yeah.
And so if that means that today I get up and I go get my nails done, or I go get a massage, or I lock myself in my office like I am right now, and the kids are out there screaming, then that's what I have to do. And I have to give myself permission, because in me doing that, I'm then performing better. I'm allowing myself to control my mind, my body, and my spirit to get done what needs to happen. And then when I'm done with that, then I can reintroduce myself back into my world / house with 3 children running around, which we actually have 2 other children here right now. So there's 5 kids out there. So, but in giving myself permission, I used to feel like that was harmful or selfish to my kids. But now looking at my kids, when I say, when I get up and one of them happens to be up during my time, they say, "Oh, mommy, you're going on your morning drive." Because that was another thing. Like if they were awake, I'll go drive. I'll drive to the beach and I'll sit and I'll meditate. And people think meditation, you always got to close your eyes. You don't. You can just be sitting there and just looking in the sky, or just being one with yourself. Doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to have guided meditation. It's just my devotion time. It's my time to either journal, to listen to something, a podcast or a sermon. But you have to give yourself that time to center, because if you don't, it's catastrophic. I used to just go, 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 go. And the minute I laid down, I passed out of exhaustion. But my mind never had time to rest. It never had time to focus. It never had time to regroup. You have to be intentional about putting yourself first, because you are the center of your universe. And with it being your universe, you got planets and stars and stuff that exist in that universe.
In that universe, yes.
And if the atmosphere is not right in that universe, everything else is gonna be rotten.
True. That's very true. Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've given me enough tips already on how to, deal with surrounding noise, like using your children for as example, like
they were just screaming. I don't know how y'all did not hear it. They were just hollering. I had to just talk through it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes in real life too, we have that, we're being overwhelmed with, distractions, with noises, with sometimes also internally, just lack of direction, or, lack of faith, because sometimes, honestly, it's a very long process from where we are to where we want to get to in life. And in between there, somehow, some way, we lose it all. We don't have any faith anymore. How do you deal with that? Like in your journey so far, like, moving from a point to the next point in your life journey, how have you been able to do it that you don't lose faith, or you don't lack faith, or you don't, lose that sense of direction on your path?
For me, I retreat. I think a lot of people are afraid of retreating, but I'm the type of person that when I'm in the storm, I can't organize, and I guess, okay, so I'm going to go military-ish. The military prepares, they prepare every day. They're preparing for the storm, for war, for whatever, but they don't go to the war to prepare for the war. They prepare somewhere else, even in school, you go to school and then you go to a job, or you go be a professor, you have to retreat. You can't make plans while you're in the midst of chaos. You have to pull yourself out of the chaos and create order. And then you can reintroduce yourself back with a new plan. And the thing about it is, you don't have to, if one plan is not working, don't keep pushing it. If it's not working for like 5 years, okay, I need you to tweak it, because that's not going to work. But in order to tweak it, you got to retreat. I go to a hotel room. I went 2 weeks ago, and I get like 3 weeks worth of work done in one night in a hotel room by myself, away from my husband, away from my kids. And I got that from a coach, Natalie McNeil. It's in her book that she goes and she plans, and she does this often. This is how she writes her courses. This is how she does things. When I'm in my office, which My office has 3 screens. When I'm in my office resembles, it basically tells me that, okay, this is operation mode. This is operation mode, but it's not planning mode to me. I have to go somewhere else away from the distractions. Because if I'm here, the notifications are going to go off. I'm going to respond to emails. It's the control center.
Mm.
I can't plan in the control center. I have to plan somewhere else.
Mm.
And so you have to retreat. And you can pull, the plug and retreat anytime it's necessary. Conflict. You're engaged in conflict. Somebody's trying to get a rise out of you. Retreat. People think that is actually a weakness. It's not. It's a strength. It is a strength. When you're able to walk away or take a step back from something, that is a strength.
Mm.
It is part of conflict resolution. But if you are a force, if you are an authority in your life, in your business, your life, your marriage, your kids, whatever, you have to give yourself planning periods. Teachers have planning periods every day, every single day.
Yeah.
And I teach my clients to time block and to time audit. You take an audit of where your time is going, and then you control your time. You create a calendar with blocks and you say, okay, I'm going to do planning here. I'm going to do doctor's appointments here. I'm going to schedule my week here. I'm going to do that. You control your time. You stop letting your time control you. And when you execute these things, people ask me, how do I have three special needs children? How am I getting my PhD? How am I running 3 businesses? And how am I still sane? I figured out that I can control more than I think I can control. And so when I put on do not disturb, when I time block, when I plan, when you plan, you're telling your mind what to expect. But when you're just letting things come hit you and bounce off of you, you have no choice but to be in a ping pong game. I don't like ping pong. I'm not trying to get hit and have the ball bounce off the floor. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I take control of my time. I take control of my energy. I take control of my mind. And you're able to do that. And when you're able to do that, then you're able to perform at your maximum capacity.
Yes, I love that. Like, taking control of your time gives you more control over the circumstances in your life or the things you have to do in life. Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And say no. Say no. Feels really good.
But it's difficult.
It's still, don't think about the other person that got the no. Just say it and let it bounce and just walk away. Just let it go.
Or
don't look.
You don't hurt their feelings. You don't want to disappoint them.
Nope. It's not on you. That's not on you.
Yeah. But there are people out there who deal with, perfectionism. Like, they want to tailor it out to be so perfect. The measurement has to be completely accurate. It has to be perfect. Like their dreams have to be 100% accurate. How do you deal with that? Like, and this causes a lot of issues, like, when you want everything to be perfect, you don't even start out without having all the details cleared and everything, sure and accurate. How do you deal with perfectionism in achieving your goals?
I suck at this. And honestly, to be honest, Toby, I probably have like 50 courses that I've written that aren't out there. I have so much stuff. I struggle with perfectionism more than most. And people tell me all the time, you're so awesome. I'm like, well, the world doesn't even know it exists. So the best way I say is the quote, better done than perfect. I'm really using that as my mantra because for me, I don't know where the perfectionism comes from other than imposter syndrome. I think, and you said a lot of things in the beginning, like, I'm strong or whatever. In my mind, I'm not. I did what I had to do and always will and always have. Like, I don't know how to be any other way. That's just who I am. For me, I used to think everybody was like me. And so that kind of makes and I don't compare myself. Like when I started my podcast, I'd never listened to a podcast in life. So I don't do the compare thing. What I do is, well, it can always be better, but I don't realize that if I'm creating it and I'm an expert at this, then it's going to be great. And it's going to be better than what people expect anyway. I have to say that to myself every day. So as far as perfectionism, I think for me, part of the reason I struggle with it is mostly because I don't plan a lot of things. But when you plan and you outline, and then you create from that, and then you let it go and you create a timeline, and you allow other people to edit and even look at things like that, then I think that will help you let go.
Mhm.
And the other thing about it is always remember, you can always modify and have an additional edition. So now my mindset is, okay, when I release a course or I release something, that can be 1.0.
Mhm.
It's done. But I can come back with a 2.0. As I learn more, I can add to it. It can be a 3.0. It can be a 5.0. So just know that it's not forever. It's not permanent. Nothing that you do is final
Mhm.
until you close your eyes. And so if you give yourself permission to grow, then you don't have to be perfect.
Mhm. Yes. Give yourself the room to grow. Yes. And to improve. Yes. Then, to be perfect. You keep on learning till you close your
Hmm.
eyes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. I really love us to talk about your wonderful podcast called Your Voice, Your Power, where you speak with experts about real life stories. You talk to them about real problems for entrepreneurs, high achievers, and even other people. Like, can you share more about this podcast and what our listeners are supposed to expect from it? I know even from this conversation already, I know everyone that's listening to this will know already what to expect, but can you tell us about it?
Came about because the one thing I want people to understand is no matter who they are, their voice matters.
Mhm.
I bring people on and I try to get to the core of how they started their business. It's
Mhm.
not necessarily just for entrepreneurs, but it's for people who are looking for courage. It's for people who feel alone in their struggles, people who may have discounted their purpose. Um, it's for people to hear that no matter who you are. So I've got some amazing people, some people who have climbed the corporate ladder and left corporate and started from scratch. I have divorce coaches, people who've gone through, illness, crisis, whatever. What it shows is that we all go through something. And the difference is some people never talk about it out loud. And then some people do. The platform is basically the opportunity for anybody to tell their story out loud, and reverse engineer it, because we're not who we are without where we've been. And so it's an opportunity for people to just listen to real people, to real stories and real life, to understand that tragedy leads to triumph, that you can't be a success without a storm. And I've tried to narrow it many times, but that's really the core of the message that I want people to understand, is that you can do anything you want to do. And to show you, listen to the 300 interviews that I've had. I've had panel discussions, I've had individuals. I bring on panels sometimes to have roundtable discussions to talk about things like, what is a sustainable lifestyle? What does support look like?
Mhm.
People have struggled to ask for help. People struggle to build their support systems, and that's where it starts. So I like to get to the core of how to move forward and how to be the best you. Um, and so, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yes, like you cannot be a success without the storms that you go through. Like everything you've gone through in life, makes you who you are today. Yeah,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
And in the course of our conversation, I've already found out that, or I know already that you have a lot of businesses, you do a lot of things, you have a lot of programs, a lot of platforms which you use to help women and other people out there. And at Nobody Greater, you have this mantra that says you never walk alone. Like never walk alone. So can you just share a little bit about all your programs that you offer, but can you tell us about Nobody Greater LLC, the Infinite Leadership Academy, and your conference that you offer people?
So Nobody Greater LLC is the core business that I first started. That was a coaching and consulting firm, and we do business consulting and strategic success systems. We build systems for entrepreneurs, startups, people. We have personal, professional, and business development programs for people. I help people incorporate their businesses, build their websites, whatever it may be. And we also use our team of resources, because I feel like I'm more who I am because of who I know now. I mean, whatever your problem is, I've interviewed or know somebody and can refer you to somebody that can solve that daunting problem.
Yeah.
And then Infinite Women's Network is something I've worked on for 3 years. It is a leadership academy full of courses that stem from business, personal, it's personal, professional, and business development for high achieving women. And it's a global network that has support groups, anywhere from cancer support, chronic illness support, business support, mentorship. We connect people with other organizations, professional development. We help you build a personal development plan, professional development plan. We have monthly trainings, and we have monthly networking. So we're really built on helping you build the pieces that you need to be successful in any and everything that you do, but ensuring that no matter what season of life you're in right now, we can address that season, but also move you to the next season as well.
Mhm. Wow, that's so great.
And then Influ Action is my conference series that I started 3 years ago. And it is a business leadership conference for women. And we have workshops. We're doing a mastermind model this year because I wanted people to have the actual action steps and the tangible resources, the worksheets, to be able to take action on leveraging your sales, your marketing, your networking, your story, your brand, and building your legacy.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. I'm going to place all of this information or the links to all of your platform in the show notes of this episode to encourage everyone to, click on them, sign up for your program, listen to the podcast, most importantly, and also become blessed and, learn more about Anika and her journey and life story and everything that she has to offer, wonderful things that she has to offer. So, for a woman out there or for anyone out there who has, experienced something like you have also, like, sexual assault or broken home or trauma or even difficulties, challenges in life, and they really, really want to, live a life of their dreams, like they have that vision to have a better life for themselves. How would you advise them to achieve this? Having gone through all of these difficulties in life, it could seem so blurry and difficult to achieve that goal of a better life, of a bright future. How would you advise them to leave that debt, that mud, and get into the light and enjoy a beautiful life?
The first thing I tell them is to own their past.
Mm.
You are not your past. It happened to you. What did you learn from it?
Mm-hmm.
Take those lessons and apply them to your future.
Yeah.
Because if you've overcome that, then that means that you are equipped to lead. So take those lessons of everything that you've been through. And even if you don't understand it, just apply it. Apply it to your future. Apply it to your goals. And understand that you're unstoppable and that you are your biggest barrier. And once you tackle you, everything else is gravy.
Awesome. That's a wonderful advice. Thank you so much. Like I'm sure there are other people out there or listeners that we still want to have more questions to ask you or still wants to make more inquiries. So what's the best way to connect and work with you?
You can find me at anikawilson.com, and at anikawilson.com in the menu, there is the links to the conference, the academy, and everything. So you can definitely find me, or even Google Anika Wilson. Make sure it's Anika Wilson from MBG, Nobody Greater.
MBG. Awesome. To make it easier, all the link will be in the show notes. Once again, you can just click on it, copy the link, and get across to Anika. Thank you so much for everything you were able to teach me in this episode. Like I could still go on and on to ask more questions, but I really respect you, the time and everything you've taught me in this episode about, achieving my goals, owning my past. Thank you so much, Anika. God bless you.
Thank you so much for having me, and God bless you and all the listeners.
Amen. Thank you.